Now that we had spoken to all 5 brothers, the 2 of us returned to the living room. The wizard sat down on the sofa and fixed me with a meaningful smile.
Well, now we've spoken to everyone. I must say, Lady Arisu, it appears the 5 of them really love you, don't they? So, have you changed your mind about choosing someone? It would solve everything, you know.
I could tell he was joking, but I didn't respond. Obviously, I knew the easiest solution would be to choose one of them, but I couldn't. Honestly, if it came to that, I would rather just die. Girl, this is a non-sustainable solution. Of course, dying wasn't my preferred option, which was why I had hired a detective in a last-ditch effort to find the culprit. Say, Mr. Wizard. Ignoring his question, I decided to ask one of my own.
What is it?
Why did you ask them that stuff?
What stuff?
You kept digging into their pasts, prodding at their old wounds. It was something I had wondered the whole time as I stood there, listening to each interrogation. That said, I didn't feel I had the right to criticize his work when I had no experience in the field myself, hence I had stayed quiet.
Their trauma, you mean?
He spoke in a quiet voice, smiling faintly. Somehow it felt like he was being condescending, and I snapped back at him. Yes, their trauma! They may not show it, but they've all gone through some rough stuff in the past. Stuff they wish they could forget.
Yes, I imagine so.
He nodded, and I felt satisfied in my rebuttal. Feeling cocky, I kept going. So why dig it up at all? Is this going to help us find the culprit?
Yes, of course.
For a second, this threw me for a loop. I thought I had the moral high ground, but it felt like he was suggesting I was being hysterical or something.
By having a precise understanding of their pain and suffering, I can plan my next moves accordingly.
How does that work? It struck me as absurd.
Basically, I'm trying to get a grasp of them as individuals.
I don't follow. I mean, I'm the one the culprit's after. If you're going to do some digging, isn't it my past that matters?
Yours? All right then, out of curiosity, what's your life story?
You're just gonna come right out and ask?
Yeah. Is there a problem?
You know, I assumed you already knew everything, but I guess not, huh? I retorted sarcastically.
No one in this world is omnipotent, after all.
True that.
All I know about you is your family, your current situation, and your personal goals.
That's a lot. I mean, what's left to investigate at that point? My lips curled in a defiant smirk. At this, the wizard rose to his feet and strode right over to me. Then, before I could react, he pointed at my chest.
Your heart. You see, I don't quite understand how you tick.
His calm smile had vanished without a trace. It felt like he was criticizing me, and my heart thumped in my chest. I don't want to sit back and let the culprit murder me. That's why I hired you, as a last-ditch effort. I don't have a dark past, nor do I have any trauma of my own. I'm not like them. I was blessed with a privileged life and a happy family.
I see.
Smirking, he took a half-step backwards. Freed from his scrutiny, I looked around the room and caught sight of the clock. It was getting late. My, look at the time. Why don't you stay here for the night?
Why, thank you. I'd like that very much.
Doesn't understand her heart. I dreamed of you again last night. Ooh. Ooh, okay. I'm in. Suddenly I found myself lost in a world of darkness. No matter where I went, the scenery around me remained static and unchanging. It was like the darkness had consumed everything, all sense of direction, even the very concept of time itself. Were I to stand perfectly still and hold my breath, the only sound would be that of my own heartbeat. Just then, someone's voice rang out through the black void. It felt like they were calling me, so I headed in the direction of the voice. There, what appeared before me was a giant looking glass. I prodded the surface of the mirror with my finger, and it rippled like water. Yearning to travel to the other side, I reached out to the mirror. Then I walked through the glass and jumped down into the looking glass world. Okay. Okay.
Now, open your eyes.
I did as instructed, and the darkness turned to light.
Do you know where you are right now?
A hospital? In front of me was a middle-aged man wearing a lab coat and a fake smile. I chose not to answer his question. However, he misinterpreted my silence as hesitation.
Relax. I'm your doctor, and I want to help you.
I didn't ask, but okay.
Now listen. Your role is to guide the others. Only you can accomplish this. The others inside you. They're not perfect like you are. You've been through a lot of pain and misery. It must have hurt a great deal. But it's all in the past. No one is going to hurt you now. You're a strong person. I'm sure you can overcome that pain and go on to have a bright future. But to that end, we must eradicate the rest. It's your life. You are in charge. Now tell me, what's your name? What's your name?
But I couldn't satisfy his expectations. After all, So, probably from Alice's perspective, is the physician the wizard? Sounds like him with the whole thing about roles and things, but it might not be. I'll have to cheatsy doodle that with the voice acting later. But, Interesting. Early that morning, before dawn, I was in the kitchen, tying my apron strings and getting ready to make breakfast for the 7 of us. Everyone was still asleep except for the wizard, who sat on the nearby sofa reading the newspaper. Did you get enough sleep last night? He looked up from his paper.
Oh yes, I slept like a baby. I'm feeling great this morning.
Glad to hear it. I flipped the French toast sizzling in my frying pan. Oh, that reminds me, Mr. Wizard.
Yes?
If possible, I'd like you to stay here and continue your investigation until you find the culprit. Or until the next full moon, anyway.
Sure, I don't mind, but...
He looked a bit perplexed by my request. I started to worry if perhaps I'd asked a little too much of him. He's probably just worried that he's going to get killed by one of your fiancés.
I'm really not looking forward to what's about to happen next.
He let out a sigh and smiled awkwardly. What do you mean?
When your fiancés find out I'm staying here, they'll be furious.
Yep. And right at that exact moment... Well, the ass crack of dawn. Elegant and well-spoken as always, Cinderella. The hell is he doing here at the ass crack of dawn? This was the first thing out of Cinderella's mouth as he walked in.
Hello there, Cinderella. Wonderful morning we're having, isn't it?
The wizard set his paper on the table and waved cheerfully.
Wait. Why the hell are you acting like you just moved in? Hey, Arisu, what's going on here?
Cinderella stormed over to me and demanded an explanation as if he were owed one. Let's wait until everyone's awake before we have this conversation.
What for?
He furrowed his brow at me dubiously as I pressed the toast down with my spatula. Well, I don't want to have to repeat myself 4 more times now, do I? So sit your butt down. After breakfast, it was time to have a chat. Naturally, the topic was, the fuck is the wizard doing here first thing in the morning? So I told them my plan to have him stay until either he caught the culprit or the deadline rolled around.
I don't like it. It's one thing to have some rando investigate us, that I can accept. But why the hell does he have to stay here?
Man, someone's like in a hand-slamming mood. Huh, Mr. Grumpy? It's okay. Cinderella slammed his hands on the table.
Right, yeah. Surely Mr. Wizard has other business to attend to and such. I don't, actually. You be quiet! Sorry.
What does it matter? We have plenty of guest rooms. Besides, he's a detective. Isn't it smart to keep him close at hand in case of danger? It was my idea, so naturally I was in favor of it. However...
It isn't smart at all! What if he tries to have his way with you? That's right! Men are beasts, you know! Yeah, and all puppets a tempting morsel.
I mean, none of you have acted on it by this point. What's holding you back, You beastly men? Every single one of them protested against the plan. As I expected, it was going to take a lot of work to convince them. That said, it felt like the conversation was taking a weird turn. Did they think there was something romantic between me and the wizard? That's crazy. Could you see yourself falling for the wizard? Well, if I squint really hard, maybe? Granted, he was a handsome guy, and his confidence was admittedly sexy. He looked so depressed. I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye.
What is it?
Nothing. Unfortunately, he caught me in the act. I quickly turned away. Honestly, what was I thinking? Shaking away the distraction, I took a deep breath. Mr. Wizard and I have a strictly professional relationship. I asked him to stay for that reason only. I don't know what you're all worried about, but there's nothing funny going on. This was my rebuttal to anyone who didn't approve of me spending time with the wizard. After giving the 5 brothers a moment to exchange a glance, I looked at each of them in turn. Kaguya tilted his head with a stiff smile, while Snow White and Cinderella nodded.
All right. If Arisu says this is purely professional, then I'm willing to let it go.
Cinderella!
Thank you. I cut in quickly before more arguing could start.
But what about college?
Right, that.
You're not planning on having him follow you around everywhere like some kind of bodyguard, are you?
With a scowl, Cinderella jerked his thumb at the wizard. Naturally, we all turned to look at him. Actually, yes.
Well, there you have it.
We nodded as if we'd planned it all along.
What was that little pause?
I turned away and started whistling, pretending I hadn't heard the question.
Sorry, fellas. I don't mean to steal your girl or anything, but it's what the lady wants.
It's Mr. Steal Your Girl! The wizard stood in front of me, shielding me from Cinderella. Thank you!
Lady Arisu, rest assured you'll be in safe hands with me.
He turned back and shot me a wink. Cool, thanks. Cool story, bruh.
Sister! Forget about him. I would be far more useful to you. You know I could make short work of a thug or two.
Then, with Gretel's interjection, the conversation took a slightly different turn. However...
But Gretel, you have to go to college too, you know. I'll just tell them I came down with the flu or something. No. Gretel, you need to focus on getting your degree. Otherwise, you won't get a good job. Then what about me? I could call out sick from work and... Kaguya, you must realize what it means to be the poster boy of your cafe. Without you there, why, the customers will be devastated. You think so? In that case, I shall be her bodyguard. I'm the most ideal candidate. Red Riding Hood, you're a police officer. You need to protect the lives of all the citizens, not just her. But...
Huh! Fine then. I'll be the bodyguard and...
Cinderella, you have a job of your own. And as I recall, your industry doesn't look lightly on slackers.
One by one, the wizard shot them all down. Snow's like, I'm not even trying. Snow White?
I'm staying home. So, are we in agreement that I'm the best man for the job?
But... No buts, mister. I shut him down, leaving no room for argument. Cinderella fell silent. Now then, isn't it about time you headed out? Don't forget to take your lunch. I gave him a little push.
Cripes, the boss is gonna yell at me.
Likewise, I had better head down to the station.
Hey, detective! I'm gonna let you handle this, but... if you lay a hand on Arisu, you're dead meat, got it?
Got it.
And so we all went our separate ways for the day. And then we kissed. The end. Sorry about all the drama this morning. The two of us walked side by side in the direction of my college.
Oh, I'm not bothered. I'm glad to see they all have fun together.
It made me happy to see him smile. Right? They have such a close bond with each other. I grinned proudly. However...
And yet your presence has thrown everything out of whack.
In contrast with his gentle tone, his words were barbed.
Love is a demon that can corrupt even the smartest of people. But there are good things about it too. Love makes people stronger. So perhaps you could change them. All I know for certain is this. You are a positive healing presence in their lives.
Okay, now you're exaggerating.
You really think so? As we discussed last night, each of them has deep emotional trauma. What they need is love and understanding. And you have the strength to accept them as they are.
Don't they need time too?
Yes, it will certainly take some time to heal their wounds. As time passes, their old memories will fade to make room for new ones. But those old memories never truly go away, and nothing can change the fact that those events happened. Besides, not everyone has the luxury of time.
Because time is limited.
Precisely. Time only goes forward, never backward, and no one knows which day will be their last. It might be tomorrow, or the day after that.
Or the next full moon, in my case.
Right. Which is why we must find the culprit before it's too late.
I snuck a peek at his face and profile. His handsome features were pointed not at me, but straight ahead.
I have no intention of letting you die.
Well, yeah. You're a detective, right? I said, looking back at the road ahead. He was here purely to solve the case. And to that end, perhaps he was right to search our souls. Could I ask you something? What made you start your own detective agency?
Good question. I suppose you could say I had the skills for the job. Functionally, I'm a jack of all trades. I'll do whatever needs to be done. One could even say it's my sworn mission.
Your mission?
A mission so important it gives my entire life purpose. Perhaps it's better described as my destiny.
Destiny. At this, I thought back over my own life. Thus far, things had been pretty uneventful. But while those idyllic days were something I cherished, part of me mourned the fact that I passed through them without accomplishing much. This all changed once my 5 fiancés entered the picture, however. I think it's really great that you have something worth dedicating your whole life to.
I'm honored you feel that way. Makes all my effort worthwhile.
But now that I was being blackmailed, my life had gotten even more hectic. Of course, if I simply followed the letter's orders and chose someone to marry, this whole crisis could be averted. But was that really what I wanted? Was it right to simply keep chugging along the same track, letting someone else pull the switches as they saw fit? Would it lead me to a greater purpose? Whoa! Out of nowhere, I tripped over something and lost my balance.
Are you all right?
Before I knew it, the wizard had pulled me into his arms.
I don't mind you getting lost in thought, but I must ask you not to lose track of your surroundings.
Right. Sorry about that, I stammered hastily. I could feel his arm around my waist, and his handsome face was so close to mine. Anyone would have been flustered in my shoes. I can only imagine the smug grin on Cinderella's face if he found out I tripped on the way to college. I laughed to distract from my embarrassment.
Indeed.
Smiling, the wizard slowly let go of me. Thanks. He's got them moves. Smooth operator. So, what are you doing here?
Well, you see, I had a few questions I wanted to ask.
At lunch, when I arrived at the courtyard, I found a visitor waiting for me at my usual spot. He wasn't even hiding. He was eating a sandwich right out in the open. Granted, acting casual was usually a good way to avoid looking suspicious, but in his case, it wasn't really working.
Well, hey! If it isn't old Mr. Wizard! What are you? Wait. Ah! I know! You're on an undercover investigation!
You're as bad as Ryuji.
Are you a phantom thief?
Just yell it for everybody to hear. My lunch buddy, Wolf, took one look at the wizard and started babbling excitedly.
If I was, then you would have just blown my cover.
You two know each other?
Something to that effect.
Yeah!
Interesting.
As it happens, I came here to speak to both Wolf and Ryoshi.
Me? Oh, is this about the case?
Correct. I wanted to talk to the people closest to Lady Arisu. Since Ryoshi isn't here yet, I'll start with you, Wolf.
Ready!
He raised his hand eagerly.
What relationship do you have with Lady Arisu?
Well, obviously.
We're friends. Best friends. I smiled brightly.
Will you let me finish?
You're her best friend, I see. Where did you first meet her?
At college, duh. I heard there was a hot transfer student, so I went to ask her out and she shot me down.
Dang.
Sorry, I'm interested in someone else.
Yeah, that! That was the exact reason she gave. But then I saw her walking with him one day and I was like, whoa. Because it turned out her crush was someone I knew.
And who was that?
Blondie,
I mean, Red Riding Hood.
And what relationship do you have with him?
We're old friends. Even if our old friendship only lasted like 2 months. See, I'm not originally from here, but when I was little, I used to be real sickly. So at one point I came out here to live with my grandma and recuperate.
And you met him around then?
Yeah, exactly. He'd always be sitting at the lake in the middle of a weekday, so I got curious and struck up a conversation with him. But right as we got to be good pals, some stupid stuff happened and then I had to go back home to my parents.
So you lost contact with him?
Pretty much.
How many years ago was that?
Like 6? I remember it was around February or March.
So what brings you back here to the countryside? You're not sick again, are you?
No way! As you can see, these days I'm in a lot better shape. I came back here because I wanted to see Blondie again.
Oh, interesting. Sorry, it just like all of a sudden hit me. I mean, Red is kind of blonde, but I wouldn't really call him Blondie. But if Alice is friends with Wolf from long ago, Alice is definitely a blondie. So it just like hit me like, wait. Wow, I'm slow. It just like, mind explosion, I understand now. That was your whole reason for moving back?
Yeah. So? Why? Is it weird? I can't really explain it, but I just couldn't get him off my mind.
How so?
Well, whenever we hung out, he'd sometimes get this pained look on his face. He'd be totally normal, and then suddenly he'd get all scared, so I'd ask him, what's wrong? And then he'd immediately say, nothing! At the time it didn't really bother me, but...
Do you know anything about his family?
Nah. I know all his brothers, but I'm not close to them or anything. Some of them I've never talked to, like Snow White.
No surprise there, given he's a shut-in.
Yeah, exactly. Real talk, I had no idea Blondie had so many dang brothers. It blew my mind when I first met him.
He spoke wistfully with a goofy smile on his face.
Hate to say it, but for the most part, Arisu and Mr. Huntsman would know a lot more than I do. I'm just a side character, you know? I'm only here to help out.
But right as I was starting to think Wolf had handled this pretty awesomely, the wizard dropped a bombshell. Just to get this out of the way.
I see. One last question. Are you the culprit?
Oh yeah! It's me, baby!
Naturally, Wolf played along. Just like brings out handcuffs and like, alright, case closed.
Okay then, you're under arrest.
The wizard reached into God knows where and pulled out a pair of giant handcuffs large enough to fit over the sleeves of Wolf's riding hood. I am resisting making a comment on the wizard just casually carrying handcuffs with him. Just not gonna touch it. And you guys aren't gonna say anything about it to me, right? Good. Okay, I'm glad we have an understanding.
What? Mr. Wizard?
You're coming with me. Deputy Arisu, file the report.
Ryukai! I cheerfully saluted him.
What? You guys?
At my betrayal? Wolf dropped his jokester shtick and started pleading his innocence. Feeling bad for the poor guy, I tapped the wizard on the shoulder, but...
What to do? Guilty until proven innocent, as they say.
No, they don't! That's backwards!
Wolf was getting desperate.
What are you people up to?
Just then, Ryoshi turned up, same as ever.
Mr. Huntsman! Save me!
Wolf pleaded like he was begging for his life. But Ryoshi merely offered him a passing glance.
You can have him for all I care. Maybe a few days in the slammer will shut him up for once.
Harsh. What? Come on! Not you too, Mr. Huntsman!
So, what are you doing here?
Ryoshi ignored Wolf's wails and turned to the wizard.
I had a few questions I wanted to ask.
Likewise, the wizard replied as if nothing was amiss.
You guys? If you're going to just ignore me, can you at least uncuff me? Hello? Can you please uncuff me?
Pipe down or I'll put your ass in solitary.
Yes, sir.
Dang. Once Wolf was shuffled off stage, it was Ryoshi's turn in the spotlight.
So tell me, Ryoshi, what is your current occupation?
What?
Ryoshi frowned dubiously. Then he seemed to intuit the meaning behind the question.
I'm a hunter.
He answered with a stoic expression.
And what does a hunter do?
Put simply, a healer of undiagnosed neurological trauma is a mental health doctor. We're called hunters for short.
Fun fact, his name even means hunter in Japanese.
Indeed it does. For the record, I specialize in psychiatry and emotional wellness.
What is your relationship to Lady Arisu?
She's my younger sister. By birth, I might add. You knew that, didn't you?
Yes, but I wanted to make sure. Why don't you and your sister live together?
Well...
Ryoshi faltered, then looked at me.
Is it that you want to give her and her fiancé some privacy?
Yeah, that. It's complicated. I'm on good terms with some of them, but others not so much. I figured the easiest option would be to remove myself from the equation.
Any thoughts regarding that premarital cohabitation?
I mean, they're all grown adults. What do you want me to say?
You sound like a pragmatic and understanding brother.
At this, Ryoshi visibly scowled.
For the record, how much do you know about the 5 brothers?
All of it. I know everything there is to know. Their pasts, their personalities.
Of course. I forgot who I was talking to. In that case, how do you feel towards Snow White? When I spoke to Wolf, he mentioned that he didn't know much about Snow White specifically.
At the mention of Snow White, Ryoshi quirked a brow.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Even I haven't seen him in years now.
Why is that?
It's not for lack of trying, I'll say that. He refuses to meet with me.
Because he's a shut-in.
Right. Although he wasn't quite as reclusive back when I first met him.
Where did you first meet him?
It was in the springtime, about 6 years back. I saw him standing around on the lakeshore in the middle of the night, so I called out to him.
Speaking of Snow White, I understand he discovered his mother's corpse.
Yes, that's correct. But it's worse than that. He was living with his mother's corpse. That's what turned him into a shut-in.
A heavy silence dominated the air. No one said a word. Then, finally, Ryoshi asked,
So, did you figure out the culprit?
No, not yet. Thus far, I've spoken with each of the 5 brothers.
The wizard glanced my way.
Anything stand out to you?
They all seem suspicious, but at the same time, they all seem innocent, too. That's all I can say for now. In other words, no, I haven't found anything yet.
He shrugged with a smile.
These things take time, I guess.
Ryoshi let out a long sigh, then walked up to me and put his hand on my head.
Try not to get yourself killed, alright?
Ryoshi, you jerk. On the way home, I thought back to my brother's attitude and raged quietly while the wizard laughed at me. Aw, I was so moved that he put his hand on your head. This isn't funny, you know. I pouted my lips.
You know he does worry about you, right?
Yes, I know. We had spent our whole lives living separately, so we weren't exactly close, but I knew he was a caring person. After all, he'd been looking after the 5 brothers since way before I showed up. This reminded me of the question I'd been meaning to ask the wizard since this afternoon. So, pretty small world we live in, huh? I knew you and Ryoshi were acquainted, but Wolf too? Nobody told me about this. I was, of course, indirectly complaining that he'd kept this from me, aka his client.
You're right. It almost feels as though we're the only people in the whole world,
he replied casually, without batting a lash. It felt like he was being evasive on purpose, but I couldn't be sure. That or he's like, have you noticed there's like no other people in the world?
That being said, I now have a firm understanding of their interpersonal connections. Wolf and Red Riding Hood, Ryoshi and Snow White. These 2 pairs seem very close.
Yeah, I agree. I nodded along. Seems like Red and Snow White made friends with Wolf and Ryoshi right around the same time, too. Wolf mentioned February or March, and Ryoshi said springtime.
And both took place 6 years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking after my, spiel, my theory spiel last time about the, possibility of multiple personalities. That would explain why in Snow White's route, he was like, I just slept. And then I'd wake up, and then I never left the house, but Mom was always yelling at me that I left the house. And then the night that he found her dead, he woke up outside even though he had no memory of leaving the house. So, all of that would be consistent with, like, switching between the Snow White and Red Riding Hood personality. Anyway.
And both took place 6 years ago. In both cases, the brothers were gazing out at the lake. I wonder what brought them there.
Beats me.
Shall we take a trip out there?
Right now? Frankly, now that we were almost home, I really didn't want to have to turn around and head back again. But once we arrived at home, we'd have to give the brothers a status update. Going to the lake actually sounded like the less annoying option.
I am on my way, honey, have you come down, never go down.